What type of advice would you give people, parents, grandparents, on how to save, build some sort of savings for their children? Whether they're still cooking in the oven or just, fresh out the womb.
Me, when I got done with college, my dad actually called me on the phone and said, "Hey, your great grandmother, so my dad's grandmother, she actually was purchasing some savings bonds for you every birthday as you grew up, and she said give this to him, tell him about it, and give this to him when he graduates from college." And so that was a fun surprise, and it was neat to see that my great grandmother had been stocking those away, and he actually gave me the physical bond, coupons that were like in an envelope, and we went and cashed them in at the bank. And I think that was the easiest and most convenient way in a lot of ways for parents and grandparents to invest for their children at the time. But in the 90s, a couple different types of investment accounts were introduced in law that I think in a lot of ways are better and a better fit for today's world. And those would be 529 accounts for college and Roth IRAs. Both are things that you can contribute to. Well, I guess the 529 accounts you can contribute to for a child as soon as they're born. Name them as the beneficiary, and you can save and invest money in there tax-free for college.
Now, with the 529, what if the child decides that they don't want to go to college? What happens to that money?
Yeah, that's a good question. I often tell my clients that 529s can be very advantageous and a very efficient way to save and invest for college, but because it is so specific to qualified education expenses, which I should mention goes a little bit beyond just the 4-year degree. It can apply to technical schools and things as long as it's a bona fide educational institution and everything. The biggest risk is you just don't want to overfund those accounts, which I don't think most middle-class Americans have a problem with. I think most of the time, most families across America, they're looking to save and invest some, but they're probably not going to get to the point where they can pay for the full cost, everything of college for 4 years anyway.
Now, with the Roth IRAs, can the parents set up the Roth IRA, like be a co-signer, and then they put money into it for the child?
Technically, no, because a Roth IRA, that IRA, it's an individual retirement account. So under the eyes of the IRS tax code, the person who's contributing to it has to be that individual themselves. And you can only put in money to Roth IRA if you have earned income. You've actually worked for some money. And so it's easier for business owner families to do this because they can actually just give their kid a job as a little employee and whatever, do the janitorial work at the business site or something and give them some earned income, and then just have them make sure they contribute all of that into the Roth IRA if that's what you're trying to have your child do. Your child, in most cases, if they just earn a few $100s or even up to a few thousand in a year and they file a tax return, they probably won't pay any taxes anyway. So they can have some earned income that they are allowed to put into the Roth IRA up to $6,000 a year. And I think the beauty of using a Roth IRA like that is you're not only having them save and invest toward their future, even though it's really coming from you, right? You're routing it through them. You're teaching them stuff about money that's important, but you got to work for it. And I think honestly, a lot of the research and data shows that when your kids learn to earn money and save it, that is so much of a better effect than just gifting it to them. I know we love our kids. We want to be generous to them. A lot of us do want to leave an inheritance of some kind if we can, when all is said and done. When you look at the research, 70% of inherited wealth doesn't make it past that second generation. And then 90% of wealth doesn't make it past the third generation. So it's very rare. Only like 10% of the time is there like true generational wealth that actually continues to pass on through the generations.
Can we talk about the reason why most generational wealth doesn't get over, why the kids spend it up so quickly?
Money's such a funny thing like this because you can have a generation that works really, really hard and is very generous and wants to leave it to the kids. But in most situations when I'm talking to people, even if they're doing that and they're preparing their personal wealth to be able to be passed on, the conversation about how they would like for that to be used doesn't happen as much as you'd think. And I think with the very, very wealthy, and maybe this is where we go back to the royal family, right? It's maybe a little different for people of that level because they have advisors and things that are hired to sort of manage it for them. And the last problem that these, royal family members have to deal with is how to correctly manage the money. But for the rest of us, that communication needs to happen. And if you want to instill the lesson of, I want you to use some of this, but also pass some of this down on to the next generation after that, unless you make that kind of explicit in what you want from those who are going to inherit your wealth, it tends to just not happen. And you see the same effect with other forms of what we call as professionals sudden money, whether it's inheritance, or someone passed away early and you get a life insurance death benefit, or you win the lottery. I mean, the studies on pretty much all kinds of sudden money is that people just tend to burn through it. Going back to the long-term idea of building up enough wealth that you have enough for yourself over your lifetime and enough to leave some to the next generation, that's a very noble idea. And I think that comes from the best place within people and what our families and our heirs mean to us. But the more valuable thing that you can do is to teach your kids the right money lessons. Because again, the research speaks for itself. They try to be really generous, but it doesn't end up really having a lasting impact like they wanted. I think the bigger lesson is to try to teach your kids the right things about money. But that means you got to learn the right things about money for yourself first, right?